Okay, everyone, to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. I have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Echon Nutra. They're a Swiss-made, Italian-designed brand, and they're, relatively new in terms of micro brands, but they're all about manufacturing and design, form and function, and utility and emotion. They really want to combine all of those aspects. Now, in terms of type of watch, you guys can see this is a dive watch. Some key characteristics and design language you're looking for a diver. Of course, you're going to want water resistance, typically with some type of screw down crown. You're going to want something that's tough, legible, with a dive time bezel, and a diving extension is always nice if on bracelet. This is their CRISTALLO Professional Diver with the green gradient dial, and it's essentially the brand's take on an ultra capable professional grade dive watch. These go for $1,190, so $1,190 direct from the brand, and I am very impressed. I know that, really recently, the last couple of years, of course, big crown, retro, vintage inspired divers have really just been all the rage, but it is honestly more full-size, chunky 42 millimeter dive watches that got many of us into collecting watches in general, just because of how cool they are, the high level of spec and the capability. There's something that's very, very romantic about that, and I think this is a great callback to kind of a simpler time in terms of dive watches, where a lot of it, is really, more than just what's on the spec sheet, but also kind of within the story that the watch tells. And it's nice that this one's telling a story that is about something new and not really harkening back too far. It's all about kind of how you feel while you're wearing it and the type of adventure you're ready to take it on. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys. Ooh. As you can see, really cool dial. That green, once the right light hits, it really lights up. Check that out. I know some of you probably within that first shot were wondering if the green was just like reflecting off of the crystal, but I will say this is absolutely a beautifully done, very subtle hint of green, and that green is quite dynamic. It actually has more of kind of a teal or hunter green kind of aesthetic to it, to where, depending on the lighting situations, you might even see a bit of a blue hue, which is great because it definitely plays off of kind of that nice kind of murky green, lagoon green that you guys can see, while you're out enjoying water sports. So this piece, 42 millimeters in diameter, 13.9 millimeters thick, 49 millimeters even in terms of the lug to lug, 3116L stainless steel, brushed with high polished accents. You can see the bevels there, really beautifully done. Nice sharp transitions, not sharp to the touch, but definitely sharp to the eye in terms of just the level of high definition finishing. Let me give it a quick little wipe here. Sorry for the fingerprints. Check that out. Ooh. Take two. Bam. Look at that. Very, very sharp. Very well done. You're going to have a flat sapphire crystal with an inner AR coating. You're going to get a 120 click bezel with a ceramic insert that is lumed. And what you're going to have in there is actually the scale is the no decompression scale. So you can calculate the maximum amount of time versus the depth where a diver can ascend directly to the surface without requiring any decompression stop. So that's why they call it no decompression scale or no decompression time. So very, very cool. It still has your traditional clicks you should be looking for. Ooh, yes. Ooh, 120 clicks. Very nice and clicky, but not harsh. Nice balance in terms of smoothness. Ooh, let's do it again. That is very nice. Definitely very functional. Again, I'm going to give it a quick wipe because it is a very nice glossy ceramic finish there. But let's get back into it. Oh, let's give it a little dust off too while we're at it. Okay. So Echo Nutra. I've actually reviewed this brand before. It was one of their kind of alpinist-like adventure watches, or you could say similar to like maybe like a Zen, you know, whichever one the entry level Zen is. I sold them, so I don't remember all the nomenclatures. I used to have some pretty. It was Zen 10. No, not the. I don't know, 556. There you go, Zen 556. It kind of was within that vein of kind of that sporty adventurer's watch. This definitely is going to be more in the vein of a traditional dive watch, a deep dive watch at that, because this has 500 meters of water resistance. You're going to have a screw down crown, which is nicely signed. You're going to see that really cool kind of mountainous logo there before, you know, really reflecting even onto the backside. You can see kind of the mountains, and then you could either kind of interpret that as shadow or as a reflection of the mountains over water. And it's just kind of the whole air, land, and sea adventure ready vibe. I'm really, really digging that. Now, behind this solid case back, you're going to have an automatic Sellita SW279 in an elaborate grade. It has a 41-hour power reserve, beats at 4 hertz, so that's 28,800 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate. And you're going to have your running seconds in the small sub dial here, and you're going to have a power reserve indicator right there above the 6. And I think it's really well balanced, and it has, of course, an asymmetrical look to it, but thanks to that, 3 numeral there on the crown side, I think that looks really great. I think it flows really cool. You get the little pops of red. I think it is definitely a good looking dive watch. And again, it's one that's meant to be quite large. It's meant to be quite legible and feel like a tool. This is not an everyday watch masquerading as a diver with a couple of dive watch features. This definitely is designed as a dive watch first, and that really shows. And for those of you that enjoy dive watches, look at that helium escape valve. You're going to enjoy something like this. And, you know, it's nice to throw on a big chunky dive watch after rotating through, you know, maybe a couple of more petite, more vintage inspired pieces. I still get a kick out of, you know, a nice stout dive watch like this. And again, I don't even consider this oversized. It definitely feels more like a full-size diver to me at 42 millimeters. Now, and then there's some people that really love watches this size. So, you know, I don't even have to convince them. They're already loving this. So getting into the dial details, that matte dial with that gradient colorway is really cool. Printed index there, very clean and legible. Small second sub dial at 9 o'clock. Power reserve indicator at 6 o'clock. Swiss Superluminova BGW9, so it's going to have a nice blue glow. 500 meters of water resistance. 20 millimeter lugs, which is very nice. And it's going to make this quite versatile in terms of, you know, swapping this piece out. So I think that's great. Solid links and end links, screw pin construction. So you guys can see there, very nice. You can see also the style is more of a kind of short H link. And because it's short, the nice thing is you don't really need half links with how short these links are. And then of course you do have a ratcheting diver's extension, not to be mistaken with a toolless micro adjust. This is not something where, hey, your primary way of fitment is going to be dialing this in. This should always be in. And then of course, if you want to extend it, to fit over a dive suit, that's great. Or maybe if your wrist swells for whatever reason, you can, let it out a click or something like that. But, it should essentially be closed at all times. And again, you're not going to get really a micro adjust, a true manual micro adjust. Sometimes you've seen these ratcheting clasps will have a couple of points in there. But here, I think, with the shorter lugs, the shorter links, I think it should be okay. Also, with a larger, thicker watch like this, it gives you a little bit more room for play in terms of how tight or how loose you can wear it, just because of the width and the articulation. If you guys are big collectors, you guys probably know like certain straps you have to really dial in, and some of them you can kind of wear a little bit looser, a little bit tighter, and they seem to just still grip the arm really well. So I'll say that's the case here in terms of my wearing experience. You do have it, of course, the buckle is also push button and nicely signed, if I can get the camera to focus on that. There you go. Very cool. You got the brand logo, you got the product information there. Professional diver, 500 meters. Yeah, I like it. It's just very clean. But with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, I think this wears really well. Of course, 7.5 inches is on the larger size of kind of average wrists. But I will say, you know, it is more of a round wrist, so it's not like it's flat and super wide and accommodating to any old watch. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, the size is going to be a bit exaggerated and those overhangs are going to look a little bit more massive. But if I keep my wrist nice and low here, I think you can see that it, you know, sits quite nicely. So what I like to do is keep my wrist there and then just tighten up the frame here so you guys can still get a detailed look, but just, you know, add a bit of a true aspect ratio. And you guys can see, I think that sits on my wrist pretty nicely. Again, not in that oversized range, definitely more of a full-sized piece. You know, of course, you're not going to want to wear this with a long sleeve shirt or something like that. Be a little out of place, but I think, you know, dressed appropriately, you know, this would be something more sporty in terms of what you're going to wear with it. And I think it'll flow really well in terms of that size, the stance, the dimensions. I think it looks really, really good. And of course, it is ultimately legible. And that is a huge part of a dive watch, is you want something legible. You know, and a lot of times it's nice to kind of swap on something that just feels a bit more full-sized, you know, something you're not going to necessarily forget about on the wrist. But you guys can see a lot of great little details and qualities. Look at that bevel transition there on the brushing. Very nice, very clean. And it sits relatively flat, honestly, 14 millimeters. So this is actually just under 14 millimeters at 13.9. That's not even that thick, but it's really more so this kind of the style of the case. It's this the side slabs there. So you know, it's just not really pulling off a lot of tricks to try to look thinner, because being super thin isn't really part of its probably its design ethos or its theme. So I think it's smart, and it all flows really well and just gives you that overbuilt, rugged aesthetic. And it just feels very, very capable. So with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, very, very nice. Actually, let me see if I can make it a little bit darker and kind of throw a little bit more shade. The room isn't totally dark at the time of filming. There you go. Really, really clean, crisp. Of course, this is BGW9, so it's going to have a nice long last, but it's not going to be quite as potent, at least on initial blast, as something like a C3. But the nice thing is, when it comes to daylight legibility, this is going to render nice and clean and white, which means that in daylight, of course, it's going to be even more legible. But you can see here in the darkness, still very, very legible, very readable in terms of all of the timing and diving scales. But one thing I always like to work in is a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. Check that out. Really, really handsome. To maybe include a bit of harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects, but all you're going to see here is really just, you know, nothing but very nice, smooth finishes there. It's a more of an industrial brush, but the nice thing is you do have that nice high polished, you know, chamfer there. It looks great. And of course the gloss on the insert also reflects light nicely. It reflects it away because it does have that angle there, and it's going to keep looking very deep, dark, and glossy, meaning that you're going to have nice legibility on your insert. One of the cool things is, again, that dial is very playful. You guys can see it's going to just render kind of black in a lot of different situations, but when you get the light to really hit it, it's a treat. And I think that's kind of fun, that you'll be kind of playing with your wrist to get it at the right angle, you know, to get that great wrist shot, or just to, you know, keep yourself busy while you're hanging out. You know, maybe you're just timing your wife at Target and waiting for her to you know, to be finished. So something like that. I don't know. It's fun. Again, this watch, although very function forward, it's just, it seems very cohesive in terms of its theme and its execution, and I dig that. I like that it doesn't feel like it's different just for the sake of being different, but it actually had kind of a mission statement in terms of what they really wanted to achieve in terms of focusing on that professional dive aesthetic and functionality. Now, closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist. A hefty beast, yes, absolutely, but a robustness that never feels frivolous, right? It's all very clearly function forward in its purpose-built aesthetic. It wears more like a full-size diver, again, versus an oversized one. Of course, that all depends on your wrist and your tastes, but yeah, that's my definition for me. Now, in terms of model variants, it's also available with a blue gradient dial as well as a full black dial option. Now, in terms of comparable models, you know, there's deep divers, but, you know, I'd say more recently, again, they've kind of lost their market share to smaller skin divers as trends have gone away from larger watches. So this is honestly, for me, a real treat, just, you know, to see those kind of tech-heavy, high-spec divers with a lot of personality. I think it's really a treat for those of you that enjoy that part of the market. And, you know, I can't speak for you, but I know there's tons of people that are out there, even channels that are really dedicated to bigger, bulkier divers, and collecting tons of them. I mean, if you guys get into some of these Facebook groups, I mean, those dive watch forums, they're not full of a bunch of hodinky kind of IPA drinking guys with a bunch of vintage big crowns. It's honestly like a lot of people with 42, 43, 45 millimeter divers with this 500 plus, you know, kind of style, right? 500 meters and deeper. So these are very cool, very collectible. And again, it's not for everyone, but there's definitely a very big demographic of folks that love these type of watches. So I'm happy to share that for those of you that are looking for stuff like this. So for me, guys, bottom line, the Cristallo may be part of a dying breed, right? In terms of being that kind of tech heavy, really cool, robust, overbuilt diver. But, you know, there's definitely a special place for many collectors who long for that kind of romantic imagery of a professional diver and, you know, putting these underwater tools through their paces and pushing, you know, these unique pieces to their limits. And I think that's really, really cool. I mean, speaking of pushing limits, I mean, it just goes with the theme here, right? You have a scale on there that's a no decompression scale. So yeah, very specific, very functional. But I think with that function comes a really cool aesthetic, really highlighted by that beautifully cool green dial. And again, there's a blue one variation too. That might be a little bit too on the nose for some of you James Cameron fans. But I think this green gradient is something that's just very, very cool. So with that said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.